My son convinced my husband I was stealing from the family. He ripped the necklace from my neck and screamed, "You're dead to me, liar." As my tears fell, I said, "You don't know who you're dealing with." That night, I slipped out, and when they woke up, they found. My name's Rachel, and I'm 52 years old. I've lived in Wichita, Kansas my whole life. I'm not some drama-seeking woman or someone who plays games. I've always kept my head down, worked hard, and put my family first. I gave up going back to school so I could support my husband's dream of running a tire shop. We built it from scratch. Every dime we earned, every late night balancing the books, every meal skipped to pay a bill, it was all for our future. For our son. His name is Mason. He was my only child, and for the longest time, I thought he was the best thing I'd ever done. Now I'm not even sure he ever loved me. Things didn't fall apart overnight. I wish they had. That would have been easier to explain. Instead, it was like a slow leak, the kind that seems harmless until the ceiling caves in on your head. It all started after my husband, Clark, had a small heart attack. He'd been pushing too hard, managing 3 shops, barely sleeping, always stressed. After the hospital scare, the doctor told him to slow down. So he started letting Mason help out more with the business. Mason had just come back to live with us. He was 26 and said he needed a reset. He'd been engaged to some girl we barely met, but it ended badly. He told us he wanted to turn his life around. He said he wanted to learn the business, be close to family again. I was hopeful. I wanted to believe him. I should have paid more attention. About 3 months in, I started noticing little things that didn't sit right. Our home safe had always had a very specific order. Clark trusted me to keep track of our financial records. But one morning I went in to grab a file, and something was off. Things were moved. Some files weren't in the right place. A few older bank statements were gone. I asked Clark if he'd taken them. He said no. When I asked Mason, he looked confused for a second, then said, "Oh yeah, I think I needed something for Dad's taxes." He didn't ask me first. He never even mentioned it until I confronted him. But I brushed it off. Then came the check. I was reconciling the business accounts and found a check stub for $9,000, written out to cash. The actual check was missing. I asked Clark about it, and his whole face changed. He looked right at me and said, "Mason said you wrote that check." I froze. "Why would I write a $9,000 check to cash without telling you?" His eyes narrowed. "That's what I want to know." That was the first time I felt it, like I wasn't part of the family anymore. Like I'd become a suspect in my own home. Then came the real hit. People started acting weird around me. Women I'd been close with for years stopped inviting me to things. At first, I thought maybe I'd said something wrong. But one day at the grocery store, Marlene, who I'd known since we were both pregnant with our boys, pulled me aside. "Rachel," she whispered, "I don't know what's going on, but Mason's been saying some things." I asked what kind of things. She looked uncomfortable. "He said you've been taking money from the shop. That Clark's been covering for you. And that you've got a gambling problem." I felt like the floor dropped out from under me. "Marlene, I clip coupons," I said. "I haven't been near a casino in 20 years. She just looked at me with pity in her eyes. "I know, Rachel. But that's what people are hearing." That night I sat Mason down. Clark wasn't home. I stared at my son and asked him straight out, "Are you telling people I'm stealing from the family?" He didn't even blink. "I'm telling people the truth." "What truth?" "That your mom, the woman who's cooked your meals and cleaned up your messes for 26 years, is suddenly a thief?" He leaned back, smirking. "Maybe if you didn't act so shady, people wouldn't ask questions." That's when it clicked. He wasn't just turning people against me. He was playing a long game. And Clark, my own husband, was buying every second of it. Later that week, I confronted Clark again. I laid out the receipts, the missing check, the changed passcodes. He didn't care. "You've been hiding things from me for years, Rachel," he said. "You think I haven't noticed?" Mason's just finally opening my eyes. Then he looked at the locket around my neck. A gold necklace he gave me for our 25th anniversary. I had worn it every day since. "I bought you that when we were broke," he said. "How did you afford a new one last month?" "What?" I whispered. "Clark, you bought this for me." "It's the same one." His jaw clenched. "Mason said you replaced it." Before I could say anything else, he stepped forward and ripped it from my neck. It snapped hard. The clasp broke, and the chain fell into his hand. "You're dead to me, liar." That broke me. I didn't cry right away. I just stood there, stunned. Then the tears came. I looked at both of them, Clark with the necklace, Mason watching from the hallway, and I said it. "You don't know who you're dealing with." I meant it. I wasn't bluffing. I just wasn't sure yet what I was going to do. That night, they both went to bed like nothing happened. I didn't. I stayed up, sitting on the edge of the bed, replaying every insult, every lie, every betrayal. I realized I'd been pushed out of my own family. But I wasn't going to leave empty-handed. I opened my old laptop, the one no one else ever used. And I logged into an account I hadn't touched in years. It held over 20 years of financial records. Backup files. Emails. Receipts. Notes. I had documented everything. Mason's name was on multiple questionable transfers. Unauthorized business expenses. Personal items listed as tax deductions. I'd seen it all, but never said a word because I trusted them. Now I knew better. At 4:17 a.m., I packed a small bag, grabbed my car keys, and walked out the front door. When they woke up, they found the safe open and empty. My wedding ring sat on the kitchen counter. The car was gone. No note. Nothing. They didn't know I'd mailed a USB drive to Clark's accountant. Or that I sent another copy to our family attorney and to one of Clark's former partners, someone I knew Mason had tried to scam a year ago. They didn't know what I'd set in motion. But they would. This wasn't just revenge. This was war. 2 days passed and I didn't hear a word from either of them. I stayed at a small motel off Highway 54. It smelled like bleach and stale smoke, but it was quiet. I used a prepaid phone I'd picked up from Walmart, just in case. I didn't trust them not to track me. I didn't trust anyone, really. Then on day 3, the calls started. Clark called first. I didn't answer. He left a message. "Rachel, we need to talk. You can't just disappear like this. No apology. No concern. Just a demand." Mason didn't even wait that long. He sent a text to my old phone, "You think you're smart, Mom? You just made the worst mistake of your life." It made me sick. My son was threatening me. But I didn't respond. By the end of the week, the fallout started. The accountant called Clark. Then he called me. "Rachel, I had no idea. I reviewed the files you sent. If what I'm seeing is right, Mason's been funneling money through vendor accounts that don't exist. It's serious." He sounded nervous. "I always trusted you with the books," he added. "I'm sorry I didn't catch this." I didn't say much back. Just thanked him for his time. After that, I got a call from Mark, one of Clark's oldest business partners. He and Clark started the second shop together before Clark bought him out. "I got your envelope," Mark said. "Is this for real?" "All of it," I told him. "Every number checks out." "I'm going to talk to my lawyer," he said. "Clark's been in breach of our buyout contract if this is true." "And your son?" "He's done." That night, I drove past our house. I didn't stop. The lights were on. Clark's truck was parked out front. Mason's new Mustang wasn't. It was strange seeing the house like that, my house, but knowing I didn't belong there anymore. I'd raised a family in that place. Made birthday cakes in that kitchen. Wrapped Christmas presents under that roof. Now it felt like a crime scene. The next morning, I got a call from Tammy. She used to be my best friend. We hadn't spoken since all the rumors started. She was crying. "Rachel, I'm so sorry. I didn't know what to believe. Mason told everyone you'd been hiding things. That Clark was going to press charges." I was quiet. Then she added something that changed everything. "Mason's been seeing a woman. Younger. She's been showing up at the shop. Some of the guys thought she was his assistant, but..." "Rachel, I think there's more to it." That hit like a punch to the gut. Clark was letting him take over everything. And now Mason was bringing in a new woman? A replacement? I felt rage bubble up in my chest. I called the attorney that afternoon. "I want to file for divorce," I said. "And I want full access to every business account tied to my name. If they try to move anything, I want to know." He didn't even flinch. "You've got a hell of a case, Rachel." The next blow came sooner than I thought. 2 days later, Mason's girlfriend posted something online, something stupid. A photo. Him and her in front of the tire shop. Captioned, "Building our empire, one step at a time, red heart." She tagged the business page. The comments exploded. Most of them from people we knew. "Wait, isn't that Clark and Rachel's place? Where's Rachel? This is weird." One of Clark's shop managers messaged me directly. "Rachel, I don't want to get involved, but I think Mason is trying to rebrand the business under a new name. He's got this girl making flyers, talking about a fresh start." I thanked him. Then I forwarded everything to the lawyer. That night, Clark called again. I answered this time. His voice was quiet. "Rachel, what are you doing?" "What you should have done," I said. He sighed. "Mason's saying you stole files. That you're trying to take the business down." I laughed. "I didn't steal anything. I documented what your son did to our business." There was silence. Then he asked, real soft, "Do you still love me?" I felt a strange ache in my chest. "You ripped the necklace off my neck and called me a liar in front of our son. What do you think?" He didn't answer. The next day, my lawyer filed for an emergency financial freeze. I was still listed as co-owner on 2 of the business licenses. That gave me rights. And I had evidence Mason was misusing business funds. That opened the door. They couldn't make another withdrawal without notifying me. That's when things turned ugly. Clark's lawyer called mine and said Mason had taken a large cash withdrawal before the freeze hit. Over $30,000. We couldn't prove it was for personal use, yet. But we were getting closer. I called one more person. Someone I hadn't talked to in years. My sister, Danielle. She was a forensic accountant in Dallas. I told her everything. She dropped everything and drove up. We worked through the night, cross-checking receipts, flagging forged vendor names, building a timeline. She found things I never would have noticed. Fake invoices. Duplicate payments. All tied to Mason's name. This wasn't just family betrayal anymore. It was fraud. And now it was going public. Danielle stayed with me at the motel for 3 nights. She brought boxes of files we printed out and color-coded with sticky notes. I hadn't seen her in years. We'd had a falling out after our mother died, mostly because Clark didn't like her, said she was too nosy. Turns out, her nosiness saved me. She discovered something even worse than I expected. Mason didn't just steal from the business, she said, pointing at a row of transactions. He created a shell company. What? She showed me the documents. Mason had filed paperwork for a fake vendor, WKS Wholesale, 3 months before Clark's heart attack. He listed a P.O. box, made up a fake contact, and used it to funnel at least $72,000 from the business accounts. Clark had signed off on it. At first, I thought maybe Mason forged Clark's signature. But Danielle compared the handwriting. No. This was him. That gutted me. Clark had either helped Mason or ignored the fraud. I didn't know which one was worse. Then came the police report. Danielle insisted I file it. I didn't want to. I still had this deep part of me that hoped things could be fixed. That my family wasn't really this far gone. But that necklace. That moment. Clark's face when he looked at me like I was filth. I filed it. The detective, a man named Ruiz, asked a lot of questions. He took copies of everything. USBs, Danielle's audit, even screenshots of Mason's girlfriend's posts. This is a mess, he said. But you did the right thing. It didn't feel like it. It felt like I was signing a death certificate. The next twist came from the most unlikely place. A week later, I got a call from a woman named Elena. She said, "You don't know me, but I used to date Mason." I sat up straight. "He told me to keep quiet," she said, "but I can't anymore." She told me Mason had convinced her to open a credit card in her name 2 years ago. He said it was just for business expenses and that he'd pay it off. He never did. I'm $14,000 in debt because of him. She'd filed a report, but nothing came of it. She hadn't realized until recently that he was doing it to other people too. "He's a con artist," she said. "And I think your husband knows." That same day, I got an email from a vendor Mason had supposedly paid last fall. $6,200 for shop equipment. The email said, "Hi Rachel, I never received this payment. Is there a problem with the order?" There was no order. The vendor had never been paid. The money had gone somewhere else. I forwarded everything to Ruiz. Then I got the call I was dreading. "Clark." I let it go to voicemail again. This time, his voice was shaky. "I think I made a mistake, Rachel. Mason, something's not right. He's shutting down one of the shops. He said it was temporary, but there's rumors going around. I don't know what's happening anymore." I listened to it twice. Then I opened the family trust documents I had stashed away. And I saw it. 6 months ago, Clark had added Mason as a trustee. Without telling me. Which meant if Clark died, Mason could take it all. The business. The house. Everything. I sat there, frozen. Then something else clicked. The heart attack. What if it wasn't random? What if Mason had been planning to take control from the beginning? Danielle didn't like where my head was going, but she didn't brush it off either. Was Clark taking any new supplements back then? She asked. Any medications Mason was giving him directly? I didn't know. But I remembered Mason bragging about making Clark smoothies every morning when he first came back home. My stomach turned. This wasn't just greed. It was a full-on takeover. The next morning, I called Ruiz again. I told him everything. He said, "You're not crazy. We're opening a full investigation." Later that day, Clark showed up at my motel door. His face looked older. His hands were shaking. He stood in the hallway for a long time before he spoke. "I need your help." I didn't let him in. "You trusted Mason over me," I said. "You broke me." He looked down. "I think he's planning something worse." "What did he do?" He handed me a manila envelope. Inside were bank statements I hadn't seen. Mason had opened a line of credit in Clark's name, $85,000, and had already spent most of it. Clark's business was drowning. He finally realized what I'd known all along. His son was bleeding him dry. And now Clark wanted my help? He wanted me to save the empire Mason was tearing down? I told him to go back home. Because the next step? That was already in motion. I had hired a private investigator. And what he found would change everything. The private investigator I hired was named Lou Granger. Retired cop. Straight shooter. No fluff. I gave him one name, Mason. Told him to dig deep. Anything and everything. I didn't care if it was personal, criminal, financial, I wanted the truth. 2 weeks later, he handed me a folder that made my hands shake. Inside were photos, phone logs, receipts, even surveillance footage. I sat on the motel bed and read every page. By the end, I wasn't even angry anymore. I was cold. This man, my son, was a stranger. And what he had done went beyond betrayal. First, Lou found out Mason was never engaged before moving back home. The fiancé didn't exist. It was a lie he told to get sympathy from Clark. The real reason he came home? He'd been kicked out of a group investment scheme in Denver. He'd promised returns on properties that never even broke ground. One guy lost $40,000 and threatened to sue. Mason fled before things blew up. Second, Lou uncovered multiple online profiles, aliases. Mason had been scamming people on Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, even dating apps. Selling items he didn't own. Promising consulting services to desperate small business owners and vanishing after collecting upfront fees. Third, and this broke something in me, he had been sleeping with his assistant. The same girl from the shop photos. She wasn't just a girlfriend. She was working with him to open a new business in her name, using our company's customer list. He was stealing from Clark, burning every bridge, and setting up a new shop 50 miles away under a fake brand, with stolen equipment, stolen money, and a new identity. He planned to leave and leave us ruined. But Lou found something else. A pharmacy pickup record. Mason had filled a prescription for a blood pressure medication Clark wasn't prescribed. Lou got copies of Clark's medical records with his consent. Clark's doctor confirmed it. He had been getting low doses of something that interacted dangerously with his actual heart meds. If it continued, it could have triggered a stroke or worse. Mason had been adding it to Clark's smoothies. The heart attack? It wasn't bad luck. I didn't cry. I went quiet. And then I told Lou, we go public. The next morning, I emailed every file Lou gave me to Ruiz, the detective. Then I sent them to Clark's accountant, Clark's lawyer, Mason's ex-girlfriend, and the Wichita Business Board. I posted the truth, backed by records, on the company's social media pages. Nothing emotional. Just screenshots. Evidence. Facts. Within 2 hours, the comments section exploded. Within 6, Mason's assistant posted a now-deleted Instagram story crying and saying, I didn't know he was lying about everything. The local news picked it up the next day. Wichita tire shop heir under investigation for fraud, elder abuse, and identity theft. Clark's business partner Mark filed a lawsuit. The state opened a criminal investigation. Clark finally broke down and gave me power of attorney over the business to stop it from collapsing. But I didn't stop there. I met with our attorney and rewrote the family trust. I removed Mason's name completely. Everything now went to Clark's sister and her 2 kids, people who had never asked us for a dime. Then, I filed for divorce. I gave Clark the papers in person. I looked him in the eye and said, you let him do this. You chose him over me. I warned you. Clark cried. He didn't even fight me. He signed everything. I didn't take the house. I didn't take the business. I took my freedom. And I took back my name. Mason? He got arrested 4 days later trying to leave Kansas. They found fake IDs in his car. They froze his accounts. His assistant turned on him immediately. She gave police her phone, full of texts about dosing dad and starting fresh once the old man croaks. He was charged with fraud, elder abuse, identity theft, attempted poisoning, and wire fraud. He pled not guilty. The trial was public. I sat in the front row every single day. He wouldn't look at me. The jury took 2 hours. Guilty. He was sentenced to 19 years in federal prison. Now, people ask me if I regret what I did. I regret not doing it sooner. I regret not seeing the signs. I regret raising a son who turned into someone so dangerous, so manipulative, so cold. But I don't regret exposing him. Clark lives alone now. We don't talk. Last I heard, he was trying to sell the business. No one will buy it. And me? I left Wichita. I moved to a quiet town in Missouri. I work part-time at a small bookstore. I live in a 1-bedroom rental above a coffee shop. I eat when I want. I sleep without fear. Sometimes I still hear his voice in my head. You're dead to me, liar. And I remember the moment I whispered back, you don't know who you're dealing with. Now he does.